Suze. Plenty of space here down the front. Thank you so much. Everybody's got their coffee or had their coffee or some other appropriate beverage to get you going this morning. Well, good morning and welcome. My name is Dr. Melissa Innes. I am from the School of Business and Creative Industries, and with my colleague, Dr. Jane Menzies, we take great pleasure in organising these events in collaboration with the Institute of Managers and Leaders in Brisbane. Of course, our moderator today, Scott, will be joining us all the way from Brisbane this morning, and then the 4556 chamber. So it's really wonderful to welcome you all here this morning. It's a privilege to open today's panel on enhancing collaboration through generational and cultural diversity. As an academic and person deeply committed to the role that humans hold in our workplace and to the power of inclusiveness, I believe that diversity is not just a demographic reality, which it is fortunately here in Australian society, but it's also a strategic advantage. Collaborative work in our businesses is more prevalent than ever, with diverse working teams spanning generations, cultures, and lived experiences. Although this can present some challenges in terms of managing that diversity, it also brings extraordinary opportunity, as we all know. Research shows that diverse teams make better decisions faster, and that leaders who embrace this diversity unlock innovation. Here we are in the Kaleidospace, empathy, and representation of issues that matter in our workplaces. We're excited to hear from our panellists today, each bringing unique insights into how we can lead with inclusion, bridge generational gaps, and turn diversity into one of our greatest strengths. Before I welcome our moderator, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this magnificent wildlife reserve some of us are privileged to call our work home. I extend my gratitude to the Gubbi Gubbi people who have lived on, worked and cared for this country for thousands of years, paying my respect to all First Nations people, past, present and emerging. How lucky we are to be greeted by the wildlife here every morning. Please join me now in welcoming our moderator for today's session, who has this morning travelled, as I said, up that wonderful Bruce Highway from Brisbane to join us. General Manager, Learning, Development and Membership, Institute of Managers and Leaders, Scott Martin. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for coming out this morning. It's great to see so many out for an early start and get your coffees and get going. So, as introduced, my name is Scott Martin and I'm the GM of Learning and Development and Membership for the Institute of Managers and Leaders, and we are the peak body representing professional managers across Australia and New Zealand. I'm excited to be your moderator for this morning for what I have no doubt will be a really insightful and relevant discussion around strategies for managing a multi-generational and multicultural workplace. In the context of today's discussion, I am a 59-year-old staring down the barrel of my next somewhat terrifying age milestone. Generationally speaking, I probably identify best as a cusper. And for those who haven't heard that term, a cusper sits on the borderline of two generations. And for me, that's Generation X and the baby boomer generation. And I notice that most in terms of technology, when I sort of feel like sometimes it's hurtling before my eyes and I'm just trying to hold on. If for no other reason than so my kids stop calling me a boomer. On one hand, understanding generational differences is of utmost importance, as the workforce heading into 2026 is as diverse demographically and culturally as ever before. As Melissa alluded to, McKinsey research tells us that companies in the top quartile for ethnic and cultural diversity are 36% more likely to outperform on profitability. MIT Sloan Management Review states that age-diverse teams, under the right management, in inverted commas, can outperform age-homogeneous teams, especially in problem-solving and creativity. And a recent study by Forbes Insights found that diverse teams across age, culture and gender drive better business performance, customer insight and innovation. So it's a no-brainer. However, on the other hand, sometimes we have the propensity to overcook the impact of elements like generation and culture, with some studies, for instance, showing more variation within the generations than outside them or between them. Things like personal values, personality and life stages need to be considered, often mattering more than when person's born. As such, putting people into boxes can be a little bit dangerous at times. So fortunately for you, the audience, and for me, the moderator, we don't have to come up with the answers this morning because we have a panel of local willing leaders who are going to share with us. And for that, I thank Vanessa Payne, Jackie LaRue, and Pepe Buetti for their participation. And rather than me introduce, if I can ask each of you to introduce yourself briefly as you ponder this question. When you think about generational or cultural diversity in the workplace, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you, either personally or professionally? Vanessa, I'll start with you.
Working. Good start, right? Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm a global leader. I'm a coach. I'm a mum. I'm at the beginning of your decade. But I agree with your comment about, we can't just put people in boxes. So I quite often don't act my age. And I aim to be a change maker in terms of diversity. I would say, to answer your question, thinking about cultural diversity and generational diversity, for me, conjures sort of images of togetherness and richness of experience, and that connectivity that when we combine it can bring us innovation.
Thank you. So will you? Yep.
Yep, over to you.
Before we start, Scott, you look brilliant for someone who's 59. So especially saying you got up at 5 or something to get.
You're in sales.
I am. Let's talk later. Yeah, my name's Pepe Buetti. I'm coming to you today, probably wearing a couple of hats or some different lenses, if you like. I'm the proud son of Italian migrants. I've run my own business here on the Sunshine Coast for the last 12 years. And that's really evolved, and we'll talk about the generational side of that a little bit later on. And my wife also works for an international company in the neurodiversity space as well. So I get a few of the messages that we're going to talk today rammed to me every day about the importance of equity and inclusion in workplaces. I also sit on the Sunshine Coast Multicultural Advisory Group. I've been a member of that since 2018. And we've undertaken a number of fantastic initiatives there, including the award-winning Migrant Work Ready program. And I'm really thrilled that one of the participants, our very first graduate from that program, Hayley, is with us today. So, it was really nice to see you. Yeah. Sorry to put the spotlight on you, Hayley, but there's the spotlight. And we work on a number of other initiatives as well, including the Welcoming Cities program, which is a national program focused on inclusion and diversity. And part of that program, which I'm really excited about, is the Welcoming Businesses program, which we want to institute here on the Sunshine Coast as well. So council's working through that process at the moment. I applaud them for taking that initiative, and I'm looking forward to being part of that process in my role with the Maroochydore Chamber of Commerce as well.
Jackie?
Hey, I'm Jackie LaRue. Lovely to be here. Lovely to see all your lovely faces. And thanks to the University of Sunshine Coast for putting this on. You always do such an amazing event. So thank you for that. Yes, I'm a business and leadership coach and very passionate about diversity in the workplace, from multicultural diversity, being a migrant myself twice over from Zimbabwe. You probably heard the accent. But also spend a little bit of time in Papua New Guinea and do a little bit of work with the Multicultural Hub here on the Sunshine Coast with Stella and her team. So anything to do with diversity and enriching the workplace is, I guess, what I'm passionate about, because I believe that we are better together. And the way I look at it, generational diversity is an opportunity. Rather than seeing it as friction or tension or a challenge, can we not see it as an opportunity with this rich diversity, and perhaps look at it from the view of perspective, not a demographic? You were talking about not boxing people, and I 100% agree with that. And so it's just having that social intelligence, if you like, looking beyond the box, looking at the opportunity. How can we capitalize on the strengths within our teams and even with our customers and so on. So that, from a personal point of view, that's answering that question. But professionally, if we can harness this, as I say, these strengths, it's, instead of it being a challenge, it's actually a gift. It's actually an incredible gift. And if we can learn to bridge the gap, not from uniformity, but using that diversity and helping to bring understanding, empathy and understanding, I think can go a long way.
Fantastic. I love that. I think it's a mindset, isn't it? Not to see things as an opportunity, not as a challenge. Can I ask the audience to start thinking, if you have questions, if you have things, start thinking about those. I'm going to go a question for each of the panel, and then I might come over to the audience and see if you've got something tricky, something curly that might test these guys. First question I have is for Vanessa. What are some of the biggest strengths you've seen diverse teams bring to projects or organisations, and what strategies were most valuable in navigating the dynamics of multi-generational, multicultural teams as a new leader? That's a long question, but you've got it.
It's double-barreled. So I guess, like for me, I think individuals and seeing the individual is the first step. So each person, regardless of their demographic, as you mentioned earlier, Scott, you know, I'm a middle-aged white woman, so I have a lot of privilege that comes with some of those things, but also being a woman in the mining and engineering industry, without an engineering degree and without a trade, you know, there's barriers there. So it's about understanding what each individual brings to the table. And as leaders, we're actually entrusted to lead others to collective success, right? That's the job of a leader. So if we can individually understand each person and what they're bringing to the table, the richness of those experiences together, we can really help them to put their best foot forward and contribute to the team and the overall outcomes, not just professionally, but personally, that can make it much more fulfilling for them. Lots of notes, sorry. So yeah, I've been in situations where I've inherited whole teams, and that's quite different to building a team, right? You know, you can build a team and curate it. You can spend a lot of time thinking about crafting job roles, what sort of skills and qualities that you want to bring in for people, and looking at, yeah, what sort of team you're trying to build. And I think the first step for me in that is curious inquiry. So really understanding what are the objectives of each individual and of the team. So yeah, so yes, you mentioned earlier, Scott, about boxes. We've been talking a bit about boxes, but we can't just make assumptions about a person's leadership preferences or their learning styles or their power distance. I'm not sure if that's a familiar term, but you know, early in my postgrad studies, I learned about Hofstadter's cultural dimensions, and you know, we can stereotype certain cultures to say that Australians and Americans, for example, we're very forward, we're very direct. We don't have a problem talking to the president, right, of a company. And certain other cultures are, yes, less so inclined to do that. And there's more distance between decision making and the people doing the work. So understanding that, I think, within your team and what each person brings individually without making those assumptions just based on a 59-year-old man. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. My second question is for Jackie. I'm actually reading a book at the moment, which some of you may have come across, The $1 Trillion Coach, and it speaks a lot to this. It's about a guy, Bill Campbell, who was the coach to Apple people and Microsoft, and he just had this ability to get to know individuals on a large. And it's quite incredible, that idea of understanding the individuals within your team. I think that's a really important one. So for Jackie, what are the most important, effective day-to-day leadership practices for building trust and collaboration across these kind of generational and cultural lines?
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I think, first of all, we need to understand how the different generations think. Now, I know we are generalizing here, but it's still, I would look at it as a toolbox. You know, take what's relevant to your teams and tailor it. But if we have an understanding what shape people's mindset and, you know, the way they respond in the workplace, because we're talking about leadership, right? We're talking about teams. It's almost like herding cats, right? How do we go about doing that? Is our toolbox, you know, up to date? So I'm just going to read some differences. I want you to just think about this with people on your team or, you know, perhaps your customers or whatnot. Here's some differences between under 40 and over 40. This is, you know, so if we can. Right. So over 40 years of old, conduct should be professional. Under 40 years old, conduct should be personal. Completely different, right? Over 40, leave your personal problems at the door. Under 40, bring your whole self to work. Have we not seen that? Right? Over 40, keep your emotions in check. Under 40, emotions play a huge role in my expression. I'm seeing a few nods, right? Over 40, keep politics and work separate. Under 40, political issues can't be divorced from work. In fact, are you aware that someone will not come and work with you, not even apply for a job if they don't believe in your mission and vision and even your political alliance? You might not be attracting talent because of your lack of transparency about what you're all about. So these are things I guess we need to be mindful of. Then the last one is over 40 years old. The workplace is run by a benevolent dictator. Under 40 years old, the workplace is a democracy for all to weigh in. And I guess I know I'm kind of using that little table, and I was going to talk about some points, but I'd really rather talk about understanding and tailoring our leadership around these mindsets, because that will make us more effective. And I just want to share something that's come up with a lot of employers. They get really frustrated. Now, please, if you're a Gen Z in the room, it's not about, you know, them and us. It's not about that. It's understanding perspective. Remember, it's not a judgment. It's more helping to understand so that we can respond, okay? So with Gen Z, they see that every year they should get a promotion. Are you familiar with this? Why is that the case? Does anybody know? Because when they went to school, every year they were graduated 1 grade. And they think the workplace is the same. So if we're not managing expectations of the younger generation, they're going to up and go. We're going to lose that talent because we didn't understand this is the way they see things. Remember, I said it's a democracy. They see the CEO as an equal. And so this is why, you know, we'll talk about later, maybe some strategies. But first of all, we need to understand. We need to understand and to engage and tailor our strategies around the way people think.
Thanks, Jackie. I think that bring your whole self to work scares the daylights out of me, but I think it's where we find ourselves in 2025, and I think you've got to get a head around that because it's where we're at. So the third question I have for Pepe, how can leaders move beyond just awareness to embrace generational and cultural diversity as a strategic advantage in team performance and innovation? We heard the statistics, we heard that it does work, but you've got to get past that and you've got to make that happen.
Thanks, Scott. There's 2 things that spring to mind to me. One is, as a leader, it's about educating yourself, doing the work, so you really understand diversity, inclusion, and how that benefits workplaces. And also, I think just being prepared to make subtle changes to your business can make a really big difference to not just the person that you employ, but the whole organisation. From a generational point of view, I want to talk a little bit about our business. We're Sunny Advertising. We're based here on the Sunshine Coast. It was established, let's say 15 years ago, by 5 people who at the time were in their middle 40s. We're a lot older nowadays. And our business has evolved as well. Back in those days, as an advertising agency, we'd place ads on radio, TV, print. And from a PR point of view, yeah, we'd pitch stories to those publications as well. But it's totally evolved. It's totally changed nowadays. The biggest part of our business is our online digital part of our business, where we buy ads through Meta and Google and all those social media sites. And content creation is by far the largest part of our PR business as well. So we saw those changes coming, and as we employed more and more staff, and obviously younger staff, and a number of graduates from this university, we could see that it was an opportunity for them to take control of the business from a leadership point of view. So we empowered them to essentially run the business. The phrase we like to use is big paddocks, strong fences. So they've got lots of room to move in, lots of things that they can do within the organisation. And as directors, we essentially sit back and we're there to provide guidance where it's needed. And that's totally transformed our business. I know there's a number of people in this room who've worked in marketing, media, advertising, and the mental health rate is incredibly high in that industry. I think it's as high as 70%. So we're getting our young leaders in our business to drive that change within our organisation. Most marketing advertising firms, they have a tenure of about 3 or 4 years. Ours is well above industry standard, and that's because we've implemented a number of changes within our organisation, how our staff do business, how lots of flexibility in working from home, flexible hours, giving them opportunity to learn and grow and understand different parts of the industry as well. And we've also instituted days like wellness days, which, you know, again, if you're over 40 or over 50, that might seem a little bit weird, but when you come from an industry that is impacted so heavily by mental health, it's a fantastic initiative. And a lot of our younger staff, or the vast majority of our younger staff, do a lot of our client-facing work as well. So it's not us old blokes going in and talking to clients. It's the younger people who are driving the business and driving it forward. So, you know, 15 years after starting, you know, we're in a fairly solid position financially, but also from a social point of view, and from a cultural point of view. I don't think we've actually ever been stronger. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for those insights. Can I go to the audience for a moment and just see if you have some questions, some comments, some queries? There might be a prize for the best question, the first question, maybe. Yes.
You give us your experience of keeping young things that you have to keep 2 to 3 years.
Excellent question. So for everyone, just some examples of how you keep young people past the 1 and 2 year period, which seems to be a bit of a challenge.
I'm happy to jump in there. I was really fortunate to lead a multidisciplinary team when I was living in Australia previously, down in Brisbane. So I had engineers, remote monitoring technicians, planners, administrators, contract managers. It was a really diverse team. And the privilege in that was being able to give sort of micro projects and second people on, you know, a 5-hour-a-week basis or something like that to keep them engaged, to broaden their skills and their experience, and particularly younger generations. I mean, our generation, we would have 3 careers. The younger one's going to have 6 or 7, you know, so to give them those little tasters through side projects. The most important aspect of that is actually genuinely carving out some work and time for them to do it, not expecting them to do it on top because it's kind of a gift to them, you know. So yeah, giving them that time and additional projects. Also making sure it's something they actually want to do, not just what they're good at, but what are they interested in? And that comes back to knowing them individually.
I think one of the best things we've done as an organisation was to employ a young CEO. CEO of our business is an University of Sunshine Coast graduate. She's mid to late 30s, I guess. So to inspire that next generation and to prove that, hey, there are opportunities to grow and learn and develop within our business, that can be done. And Sarah, who leads our business, is a really shining example of inspiring, that next generation. I think the universal design of workplaces is really important as well, because as I said before, it just doesn't benefit young employees or migrants or people with a disability. It actually study shows it actually benefits the whole organisation as well. And they're things that aren't expensive to do. They're cost effective, but have great worth. And I think you need to look at when you're particularly younger generation employees. It's looking at what they want in their business, things like flexibility, skills recognition, giving them, as you said before, meaningful work, a proper rewards and recognition program. And I've mentioned before about hybrid working hours and things like that. Just making the workplace a far more flexible organisation has really proven to be a winner for us.
I love that word flexible. One thing I learned a long time ago is flexibility is my middle name. And I think that's what we're talking about today with the generational diversity. I was a sales director with Mary Kay Cosmetics, and I had about 135 team members, and a lot of them were the younger generation. And we found they had a very different approach to business, socializing and whatnot. So we actually hired a psychologist to get some help because we had no idea how to lead them. We literally were frustrated. I'm sure some of us can relate. And this psychologist was amazing. She talked about the way, and I'll talk in a minute how we use that, but she talked about how the brain development is different with the younger generation because they're not as tactile. And by that, I mean, they outsource all the jobs. They don't do the washing, they don't do the gardening, they don't cook. It's all outsourced. But even think about relationships, they're all tech, they're tech channels. And so she actually said there's parts of the brain that weren't developed that needed developing. And that's that hands-on stuff. And once we had an understanding, we were then able to then go back to the young people in our teams, because it was a bunch of us that had the psychologist. It was like a half day, like, please help us. And, it absolutely transformed the way we understood the younger generation. And the biggest thing that I think, no matter what age people are, people want to know that they're valued, they're seen, and they're heard. And the way to do that as a leader is to say, what is your why? Why are you working in this role? What is it that you want to achieve? If we work together, these are the goals of our organization. How can I help you find your strength to fit into the team where, that suits you best? And so we could actually leverage your strengths, but also help you achieve your goals. So we need to treat people individually. And that's what I did. I sat down with every single young person in the team to find out what was their motivation. The other thing that really helps with no matter what generation, but the younger generation, is recognition. They have so much to offer. And so it's helping them succeed, but then B, rewarding them publicly and so on. So I think the other thing I would say is I actually don't see age. I know we're talking about age and demographics, but I don't regard myself as a generational whatever age. And let's just say I'm of an interesting age. All right. A woman won't reveal her age. But I get on with 21-year-olds just as much as I get on with, 90-year-olds because I don't see age. I believe it's being young at heart. And by doing that, we break all those barriers and we help people, we retain people because they know that, remember, I said seen and valued and heard. So there are some tools that we can use as a leader to help retain our team. I love what you were saying, Pepe, about, job design. Young people need that flexibility in work. They need to be able to have maybe a hybrid role and a little bit more freedom and autonomy. And it's matching, their lifestyle needs with the job role, but while we still achieve our goal as an organization. Yeah.
Can I just add
Absolutely.
one more to that? It's a little bit of a shameless plug for IML. The Institute of Managers and Leaders is not just for existing managers and leaders, it's also for aspiring managers and leaders. And they have an amazing mentoring program. When I first joined IML, I was a mentee. And this year I've been a mentor. So I think giving your young people opportunities to connect through industry outside of the workplace is also another really good strategy.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. I just wanted to use that as a bit of a gateway to ask about bias. And perhaps you've all probably had your own experience with bias against you in various forms, but also how do you navigate, particularly in the recruitment process, and how do you navigate in 2025 and beyond, your own biases towards hiring, and making sure that you're getting the best person, but also a navigating this multicultural and generational.
I would say data. Particularly if you have a bit of a larger team and if you truly understand the different skill sets, personality types, career direction, like not everybody wants to be a CEO. You know, some people don't want the promotions. They want the slow and steady and stable, and others are aspiring. So if you can understand each individual person and then zoom out and look collectively, how does my team come together? What are my gaps? If you're really data driven, you can create a Power BI tool that actually shows your team strengths, and if you can identify the specific skills that are required for each role, and then collectively across your team. When you're recruiting, you know what your gaps are and you know what you're hiring for to fill the team, whether that's cultural, age, skills, background, energy, all of those things.
So getting better at the front end to get better results in the back end. So
I'd agree with all of that. I think also just constantly reflecting on your values, how you run your business is really important. I mentioned, some of our staff initiatives. Recently, we had our values day, where we have awards for our staff who best reflect the values of the organisation. It was just a fun day at Cotton Tree Park where we just put on a little bit of food and had some team building games and all that sort of stuff. So all those sort of things help. But I guess my response is also what I said right at the start is actually about doing the work. Like as leaders, you actually have to do the work. And I spoke here to some uni students a couple of months ago, and my advice to them, they were just about to graduate, was, what got you here won't get you there. So, the quote I like to refer to regularly is the difference between you now and in 5 years' time, the books you read, the people you meet, and the podcasts you listen to.
I guess we all have bias. It's just the way we're wired. But I agree with the values-based approach. I would hire, doesn't matter for me about age. It comes down to do the values match what I'm looking for? Do they match the team? Do they match the overarching objectives? And also skill set. What's their area of proficiency and competency? So, what Vanessa's saying is, where are the gaps? What are you looking for to build in your team? And so I think it would be good to have a diversity in the team, just like we have gender diversity, cultural diversity. I think it's important to aim to have that generational diversity, because different generations bring different perspectives. So when you think about your customers, there's more relatability. You're going to attract the different demographics of customers if you have a diverse team. So it actually can be something you can leverage. But I usually, the way I hire is on attitude. And that comes back to values and character. I can teach skills. I'm a vocational trainer. I can teach them skills any day of the week, but I cannot teach them attitude. And so I look at, I guess, how they connect and engage. And is that someone who's teachable? I also believe in a mentoring strategy. We need to nurture our emerging leaders and give them opportunity to grow as well. So they might also want to know, well, what opportunities do they have to grow within the organization, and helping them as well. So it's a matchmaking thing, isn't it, when you're recruiting? I also think I would set a challenge to ask, would they be willing to commit for a minimum of 3 years? I don't want to hire somebody, spend all that money. It costs over $21,000 to replace someone. In fact, I think it's way more, but that's the stats. That's a lot of money. So, when we're hiring, are we asking them to also commit? And I'd want to see, would they be willing? So that would be another, I guess, a hiring screening strategy. Yeah. And are they on board with the vision?
Fantastic. Audience, another question. A challenge at work, perhaps, or a challenge at home, a challenge with those teenagers that you have at home.
Yeah, I'm a mum of Gen Z. So if anybody's got the slightly younger ones, I can help you a little.
Yes.
A lot of this is getting the workplace for the younger difference.
in the reading workforce more employees, and suddenly things are changing for them. How do we help them sort of understand things and think about things?
Yes.
Yeah. That's okay, you can. Yeah.
It was just about, we're talking about changing the workplace for younger people, but how do we support the older people who are now going through that change and it's not always benefiting them?
Are we on? Yeah, I have had teams with, graduates all the way through to nearly ready to retire. I think the biggest risk to business with our older generations is that tacit knowledge that they have, and how do we extract that from them? I do like mentoring, right? I'm a little bit obsessed with mentoring and coaching, but reverse mentoring is a really great way to bridge the technology gaps. So if you can find a good personality match between people, and not necessarily just in your team, right? You can look across the business, look across industry, and really give older generations, or there are some young people who are not terribly tech savvy as well, right? It's not just the older ones, but if people are not super comfortable in that digital space, understanding what the actual job requirement is for them, understanding how they like to communicate. Some people just want to respond to emails once a day. Some people want to walk across the room and have a chat, and I think understanding how each person wants to communicate is a really good start. And then, buddying up, pairing people who are tech savvy and patient with those who are less so. I do that with my 25-year-old and my mum. Funny little story. We bought her a laptop for Christmas. She's 72. And her laptop was like 10 years old, and she was always complaining about it anyway. So we got her all set up on Christmas Day, and she lives up at Gympie. And about a month later, she messaged me. She said, "Ness, I can't get the computer to turn on. Like, it just won't. I'm pressing the button, where I log in with my fingerprint, and it just won't work." And I was overseas, and so I messaged my 25-year-old. I said, "Drive up to Gympie and rescue Nan." He got up there. She was putting her finger on the sticker, not the button. Yeah. So, but once she knew, she was like, "Oh, right, I've got it now." So, and he was so patient and kind. He did a 2-hour drive to go help his nan, and now she's really good with her computer. So I think that's it. It's the patience and partnering. Yeah.
I think for 40+ employees, it's understanding the role that this younger generation is coming through and how they're actually benefiting the organisation. I also believe, if you're in the workforce, it's just about continual learning as well. So if you're 40+ or whatever, it's about learning, different parts of the business and new trends and AI and everything else that goes with that as well. And also, I think the thing I've had to learn the most is as one of the leaders of the organisation is just get out of the road as well. Like that's doesn't really answer your question, but just get out of the road and let this younger generation come through, and they'll make mistakes, but you're there to help them, guide them along the journey. I think that's been a really strong learning for me. It's taken a little while too.
Yeah, you read my notes too, Vanessa. Reverse mentoring. I think I'd say you've got to think about baby boomers, right? They had a very different experience with screens. They were sitting around the TV, around the radio as a collective, right, as a family. And then as technology went on, now we have individuals with a niche offering on their screen individually. So that divide, I think, is part of the challenge of how do we get baby boomers and Gen Xers to then engage with Gen Y or millennials and then Gen Z, because of that difference. And I believe technologies can be a silo. And so if we can create opportunities of collaboration, you talked about teamwork before, we can, I guess, facilitate this cross-cultural communication by validating the different generations. Every single generation has a strength. And so if we were then to say with baby boomers, you have so much perspective and wisdom and soft skills versus, you know, the other generations that are more tech savvy. This is this reverse mentoring model. How can maybe a baby boomer share the knowledge and wisdom through mentoring with some of the other generations? And the other thing that I lament is that I'm hearing all the time of baby boomers retiring with this gold in them. And I'm so frustrated. And I say to them, what are you doing about handing on that knowledge before you exit the workforce? We need that knowledge from them. That is absolute gold. That experience, remember we talked about the young, going to that psychologist, and she said some of these relational and tactile skills have not been developed. This is where the baby boomer can come in and help, not hold their hand, but encourage them. And the way to do that, I believe, is storytelling. Storytelling is such a powerful tool. Not when I was a kid and I walked 10 miles in the snow. It's not about that, you know, it's and this is where I do believe we need to see everybody with equal value. You know, we talk about, this is one of the things, I'm a John Maxwell coach, and one of the things he teaches, which I love, he says, imagine everybody has an invisible 10 on their head. Now, if we imagine that with every single person, no matter their demographic, wouldn't we treat them differently? We would treat them with respect. It's not about age. Oh, well, you're young, what do you know? Oh, you're old, you're over the hills, what do you know? But we as a leader can facilitate the goals in each of them and say, how can we, and get them to come up with a strategy. How can we, you know, reverse mentor, work together, and then build the strength? I was talking to Sarah McIntosh from Yes Employment, and she said to me, she actually has a coach that's of the baby boomer generation and works with the younger generation because she works in disability and she's got a lot of support workers, younger casualized workforce. And that person helps them feel welcome and connects the generations. I think that's brilliant. That would be a really simple way of helping bring that bridge across the divide. Yeah.
I think it's quite a significant problem. And I can talk to that because I'm 60 and I think it's a really relevant question, and I think organisations, and Bunnings is one. Everyone goes to Bunnings, and everyone knows that there's a very, very age diverse workforce, and they're doing a lot of work to keep older people in longer who've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience. And I think, you know, I hope that we can make as many inroads with that end of the workforce as we can with the front end of the workforce, and it's going to get more diverse and more age diverse, and you know, I want to work for a lot longer, and I'd like to think my knowledge and experience can benefit people. So, another question from the audience. Thank you for that. That was right on the money. Yes.
Hello, Davinia Vella from the Sunshine Coast Council. Just an interesting observation about the reverse mentoring. Recently we ran a mentorship sessions or a mentorship course for migrants that wanted to work at council with established employees at council, and the results from it were amazing. And the actual mentors that are employees of the Sunshine Coast Council got so much out of it. So there's so going both ways. And I think as younger, I'm kind of on the cusp, so I can't really call myself young, but I'm definitely of the school of thought of decolonizing power and decolonizing workforces. So I totally get the idea that sometimes there are older people that are really stuck in their beliefs that are actually really harming that culture of you know, everyone being equal and everyone contributing equally to that. You know, there could be then cases of racism or bias or bullying that is really hard to get across when someone's older or in a different generation or in a more powerful position than you. So just around how can you raise that culture of equal and everybody being valid in a place where it's already been established for a long time. So I totally get your point that sometimes it's not just training the younger ones to, but you know, we're in a stage now where things are changing around us, where power structures are changing. Everyone's asking for you know, more of an equal landscape with democracy being more seen. So how do you manage those dinosaurs within your company?
Great question, thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, mining and engineering industry, and I'm very vocal on the DEI space particularly, and it's not today's topic, but pride. And just being female in that industry is challenging. And I can tell you that age, yes, stereotypically, but it's not actually just about age, right? It's about attitudes, and it comes back, I think we've all talked about it today, values. What values are at the core of your organization, and how do those behaviors contravene those values? Because regardless of age, race, cultural background, gender identity, some behaviors in the workplace are just not acceptable. And I think that's really how you build that culture, is to model as a leader yourself, but also to be really clear about who we are, and what language do we use, how do we greet each other, what space and time do we give each other, because then I think that message is quite clear. And I know maybe it's something that's not talked about a lot in leadership, but sometimes you have to decide whether people do actually belong in the team, and you can't rescue every puppy. Yeah, so that's kind of.
Yeah, I think it's the hard part of leadership, but you can't enjoy the good times until you get through that. You know, you've got to make those hard calls on things sometimes.
Yeah, further to Jackie's point before, it's every organisation needs that balance of, you know, the older, wiser, so-called wiser heads, and then the young enthusiasm coming through as well. I guess what we do know is that there's literally a silver tsunami coming through of boomers who are about to retire or sell their business, and yeah, so there's a whole vast array of opportunities for the younger generation, but it's also, you know, making sure that there's those mentorship programs in place to ensure that yeah, businesses and organisations can continue to run effectively.
I think what we're talking about, it's not just dinosaurs. You can have young people who don't have an open mind. I would call that, yes, I agree. I think I've seen that. And I've heard people say they don't want to hire people over 50 because they're so stuck in their ways, an almost autocratic model, which I get frustrated in, because that's boxing that generation. I actually have heard an employer say, I will never hire anybody over 50, because they would never say that publicly. But, you know, there is that discrimination. But I would say, to me, it's about, does that person have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? And I do believe the leader, you know, you talked about leading by example, Vanessa, I agree with that. The speed of the leader is the speed of the game. We set the culture as the leader. And there'll be some people that will self-select because they're not the right fit, and that's okay. But a fixed mindset is, oh, you know, this is just the way it is, and, you know, there's no compromise. Whereas a growth mindset is, you know, I don't know the answer. Perhaps, you know, technology, let's use technology. I'm not really good at technology yet. But if somebody teaches me, maybe a Gen Z, I can learn and I can be good at it. So I would be fostering that mentality within the organization that will deal with some of these, I would call them borderline toxic. The other thing I would, as a trainer, I can't help myself, it always comes back to education. So it's on us to educate our team. If we're not investing in our team's not going to grow. And I don't just mean grow in size, I mean grow inside. You've got to be bigger on the inside than you are on the outside. So, you know, there's 9 forms of bullying in the workforce. So then it's up to us to say, are you aware of the 9 forms of bullying? And this could come back to, it, you know, is an older person discriminating against a young person? Oh, who are you? What do you know? It's not acceptable. Psychosocial hazards are very real. We have a responsibility as leaders to know what those are. It's not a case of, oh, you know, it'll just sort itself out. We have to know it, and we have to educate our teams. I believe that will help deal with some of those challenges. I was going to say something else, but my can't think now. Growth mindset's one of my favorite things.
I might just pick up on the psychosocial risks. You know, I do think we've seen a lot of change. You know, we spent 20 years making the workplace physically safe, and now we're at the start of this making the workplace mentally healthy and safe. But I see a lot of organisations are a bit slow to that, and it is linked into the topic because it is made more complex by generational and multicultural workplaces. But just some ideas and thoughts on where that's all going, and organisations need to be thinking and making movements because we're probably one big court case away from people sitting up. Yeah.
There's a bit of a pattern emerging here. Yeah. Thanks, Peggy. Yes, I would say in terms of psychosocial safety, the younger generations particularly, they just won't stand for it. They'll walk, right? They're not going to be in a workplace. They don't, I mean, my generation, we glorified overworking and stress. You know, a few years ago, I was working 70 hours a week. I was taking calls at 6 a.m. on Sunday and organising freight, you know, and I had this moment where I woke up and my kids are like, Mum, what are you doing? You know, they won't, right? So I think, what was the question again?
I think you're answering it in a roundabout way. I think you know, we're having to change a lot of that behaviour. You know, it's going to have to change, and
Absolutely.
organisations can't survive on people working 70 hours a week.
That's right.
A, because people don't want to do it, but it's illegal. So.
Yeah. And also, I think there's a big shift, particularly in Europe, with corporate social responsibility. You know, it's no longer just about sustainability and CO2 numbers and circularity. It's also about well-being, employee well-being, and mental health in the workplace. So yeah, if you're looking for actual strategies, I would recommend that you look at what internal trainings your organization actually offers to educate on psychosocial safety biases, as we mentioned earlier. But also, I think if you think about the expectations on young people, particularly, to just assimilate into the workplace, that just doesn't happen anymore. So yeah, I think they're creating the workplace for them for the future.
I've probably got time for one more question from the audience. Yes.
I just think it's interesting that a lot of diversity is quite overt. When you get a resume and someone's age on it, you know what generation you're dealing with when it comes to things like neurodiversity, and certain, you know, socioeconomic situations or geographies aren't, you don't necessarily out yourself in a job interview that that's what you're dealing with. And I think about this because we talked about personality and attitude. So if you're dealing with someone with neurodivergence who comes across with rigid thinking and can come across abrupt and rude, how do you identify that you're dealing with a diversity complication and tackle it in the workplace?
A nice, easy question to answer.
I mentioned before my wife works in the neurodivergent space, helping people find employment. And it's interesting that their process that they take. They actually don't do face-to-face interviews. Their candidates actually do case studies. So they're given time to go and do the case study and then come back rather than doing, because yeah, people want people who are neurodivergent. Some aren't great at the face-to-face interviews. So again, it's about being flexible, which is what a thing that hopefully we've brought up today. It's about being flexible from an employment and from a cultural point of view as well. So if a face-to-face interview doesn't suit a certain employee, just do it differently. And we all know the benefits of employment. We're preaching to the converted here today, but you know, people from neurodiverse background, people from multicultural background, and employing young people, we know the value that they bring to organisations. You just need to do things a little bit differently.
But you're talking about my favorite topic, personality profiling. That's what I do. It's I call it my superpower, but I just love it. But people can feel boxed by that. So I'd say that's just a guide, personality profiling, because we talked about gaps in the team, right? Identifying the gaps. And this is where psychometric assessment can be a fantastic tool to help you. You know, the diagnostic helps you see what's underneath with the team. Here we clicked it to lead. Remember we talked about herding cats. How the heck do we do that and then hire someone else to join the team of the cat team? And, you know, it's crazy. So we do need some clarity around who's in the team and what their strengths are. So But also I'd say we need to read to lead. And by that I mean, we need to be in tune, we need to read to lead. So we got to read people. We got to observe. That's why I think sometimes I'm one of these people, I've got to look at somebody when they're talking because I'm reading their body language. I'm reading the nuances. I'm trying to pick up on signals and patterns. You know, it's all subconscious. We probably all do it. But being mindful that people are different and embracing that difference, and that's okay. So, yeah, and I love that your wife does that amazing work. You know, neurodiverse people bring such a richness to the tapestry of our workplace, but it's helping us have the right toolbox, coming back to the toolbox. And so, yeah, so the other thing is with DISC profiling, it's also important to do the team profile because then you can go, because is it all right if I just quickly share on this? Just quickly. You can work to your strength, but how does that strength relate to other people in the team? We're not just in a workplace by ourselves, we're in a group together. How can we help people navigate in a way that respects other people and their differences? That's the cue, that's social intelligence and emotional intelligence. I really believe that's, if we want to herd the cats in this environment, if we can develop those soft skills of social intelligence and emotional intelligence, reading to lead, you know, we'll be way ahead. This could be a competitive edge, a competitive advantage by knowing how to navigate. I just want to read a couple of quick things, if I can, about the generational perspective on authority. So boomers look at boomers and Gen X are committed to the individual. Millennials and Gen Z are committed to ideation. Now you put those people in the same workforce, that's going to be a challenge. And I just wanted to, I want to circle back to how can we lead people, lead the herd of cats in a way that still helps our business and our organization. Is that okay? And I'll quickly, just 4 quick thoughts. So what is healthy and realistic? Everyone's voice should be heard versus everyone should have an equal voice. There's a subtle difference there. This is healthy and realistic. Everyone's voice should be heard versus everyone should have an equal voice. It's not a if you're the leader, it's not a democratic, right? Okay, next one. This is healthy. Teams should provide a place to let people weigh in and share ideas versus teams should allow everyone to weigh in on each decision of the organization. That isn't, you cannot run a business that way. And I think this is where we're having challenges with the younger generation. We need to lead, but bring in that nuance. Okay, healthy versus realistic. We all deserve equal opportunities versus we all deserve equal outcomes. I'll read that again. We all deserve equal opportunities. We all deserve equal outcomes. Then the last one, healthy and realistic. Inclusion means we are all safe to share. Versus inclusion means we all get to make choices. Subtle. But, it's the difference between having a successful business, and to lead from the front. Can I just wrap up on 2 points?
Yes.
So I would say on that, how can we navigate forward as a leader in this space? Number 1, set clear expectations, then invite diverse input. We're the leader. Number 2, lead with empathy, but follow through with consistency. Thanks.
Thank you. I might take that as your summary, maybe 30 seconds, Peppy, just both of you just to summarize your thoughts and anything you might have,
Yeah, I just wanted to take a slight step back, sorry. Just to the neurodivergency, right?
Yep.
I think it's really important. I think, Anna, you were kind of hinting towards the recruitment aspect, right? Yeah. I think in terms of psychosocial safety, it's really important that we don't force people to out themselves, right? And so how do we create a workplace that actually caters to different styles, different learning styles? I remember an organization I worked in, my chair was in the corner, which I really liked because it was quiet. Then they installed a TV right above me. I'm a little bit distractible. Every morning I walked in, I turned the TV off. Every time I came back to my desk, the TV was back up. So little things like that, right? Understanding and creating different zones in our workplace that cater to different levels. Yes, neurodivergency with that or without being declared. And people are introverts and they like quiet and they need to concentrate, or, you know, they're extroverted and they need to sit over that end of the room like me. But yeah, so I think that in terms of neurodivergency during the recruitment process, being aware, educating yourself, being curious, but then also having that work environment that actually does cater to lots of people and provide different spaces.
Thank you. Peppy?
Scott, the very first question you asked us today was, what's one word that would describe our attitude or feelings towards generational cultural diversity? I'll add disability in there as well. The word I choose is opportunity. I think it's a massive untapped opportunity. If I put my multicultural cap on, I think about like the number of Uber drivers that we have, the number of cleaners that we have, the number of food processing workers that we have who are essentially overqualified for those roles. And you know, we need those people working in roles in areas like the Sunshine Coast, but you think about regional and remote Australia, where those people can add absolute value to our communities, not just economically, but socially as well. And I think it's bureaucracy that's holding that up. And I think there's an opportunity to be grasped there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Big topic, and I think our panel has done an incredibly great job. We could probably do 5 or 6 sessions on this whole area because there's lots of cans of worms and lots of things to talk about. But can you please thank our panel for their insights today? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'd just like to provide some closing remarks for today. And my name is Dr. Jane Menzies. I'm the program coordinator for our MBA and postgraduate programs. And I'm incredibly proud of this panel today, and to Mark and to IML and to 4556 Chamber for hosting, or for us all getting together to host this event. And I'm also very happy that Collider also hosted us in their space today, and the beautiful catering that we've had. So I think you would agree that we've got lots of good tidbits from this panel, whether it's like reverse mentoring, lots of insights from Jackie and Dennis, and you know, great experience from Peppy, from running his business and all the other experiences he's had, and also from Vanessa as well. So thank you so much. So yeah, that was my closing remark, but I'll just also just talk about some of our future events. The space that we're in at the moment is the Collider space, and that's our innovation centre. They actually have a space to see accelerator, and you can see a little kind of banner over there, which basically talks about sustainability, blue economy, agriculture. So if you're interested in accelerating your business, you can join the accelerator. So please reach out to Coco and the team that are here today. The 4556 Chamber have their annual general meeting coming up on the 22nd of October, next Wednesday. So tickets are still available for that. And in December, we will sit down with the Institute of Managers and Leaders and the 4556 Chamber to decide on our events for 2026. So they're to be advised. And if you have any good ideas or any types of topics that you would love to see in you know, our event series for next year, please email myself or Melissa for that. But anyway, I'd just like to say thank you for everyone who came. I'd like to acknowledge Crave Marketing, who've got a trade table down the back and would like to sponsor this event next year, a little bit, whatever. But also thank you to Anna and to Kay. And if you want to have your own trade table, just make contact with Melissa and I, and we can discuss a little opportunity. And I'd also like to also acknowledge our good friends at Bloom Hill Cancer Care as well. So thank you again for coming. So thank you so much, everyone. And thank you to Mark. Thank you. And so thank you for attending today. Enjoy your wine. And please stay around. There's plenty of food, but of course, if you have to go, grab some food, have some coffee, and then do a little bit more networking. So thank you again. Cheers. This is really nice. So nice. Yeah.
I will be